Coming up next on Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from the historic Mason's Lodge here in Jackson, Mississippi, folks. We got a packed show for you. We'll break down the race for the United States Senate, the runoff election, 8 days away, pitting Mike Espy against Cindy Hyde-Smith. Of course, all kinds of drama back and forth, and there's a huge effort to get black folks out to the polls. We'll explain to you exactly what is going on. Also, we'll be talking with NAACP President Derek Johnson. Also, Michelle Kiles with Delta Sigma Theta, as well as the SP campaign manager, Alita Fitzgerald. All of that right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Also, folks, the race is over in Florida and Georgia, where Andrew Gillum and Stacey Abrams both have bowed out. Of course, it went down to the wire, and so we'll also share that with you as well. In addition, folks, we'll talk about the impact, again, voting in Mississippi and the life and legacy of the great Medgar Evers. All of that and more. It's time to bring the funk from Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time, and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
All right, folks, we are here in Jackson, Mississippi, of course, and I want to let you know where we are. This auditorium here is the Prince Mason Lodge, and the NAACP, they've been here since 1955, and this, of course, is a historic facility because this is where the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party was founded, as well as the funeral of Medgar Evers where it took place, and so one of the most historic buildings in all of the state of Mississippi, and so we thought it would be fitting for us to broadcast today's show from here, as we are here focused on the U.S. Senate runoff race in Mississippi between Mike Espy as well as incumbent Republican Cindy Hyde-Smith. And there's been lots of drama in the last several days. Of course, both of them were the top two vote getters in the November 6th election. Because neither one got a majority of the vote, they went to this runoff on November 27th. It is 8 days away. There's a huge push to get as many people out to vote as possible. Now, you might recall, of course, that Thad Cochran, he is the longtime senator from Mississippi. He retired due to health reasons, and Cindy Hyde-Smith was appointed to that position. This is to fill the remaining of his term, and so it has not been a race that has got lots of attention across the country, but it is about to, of course, like Donald Trump will be in Mississippi on Monday for two campaign rallies for Cindy Hyde-Smith, and of course, her comments about public hanging and voter suppression also garnered lots of attention across the country. First off, this is what she had to say when she had been endorsed by a particular official in Mississippi. This is what she made this comment about public hanging. Watch this.
Yesterday, and we stand by that statement.
Could you expand on it then, why you said it, what you meant by it, and why people in the state should not see it as offensive?
We put out the statement yesterday, and it's available, and we stand by that statement.
Senator, are you familiar with Mississippi's history of lynchings?
I put out a statement yesterday, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Governor, you mentioned that it shouldn't be viewed with a negative connotation. Could you at least explain
I put out a
how
statement
it could be
yesterday, and we stand by the statement, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Is that phrasing in your everyday lingo, in your vocabulary? Do you use that phrase?
I put out a statement yesterday.
Governor, you appointed her as
All right, folks. Also, of course, Cindy Hyde-Smith got lots of attention when she said she made this joke about voter suppression.
Sure. think it was this. Look at the camera.
Of course, also, here's some other news in this race. Cindy Hyde-Smith accepted $2,700 from a rabid white supremacist businessman from Washington State. His name is Peter Sieve. Now, after the media, of course, got a hold of that, and they raised some issues with that, they decided to return the money. So what is the state of the campaign of Mike Espy? Well, let's talk to the person who knows it well. Sit right on over here. Alita Fitzgerald, she's the campaign manager for Mike Espy. How you doing?
Doing great. Thank you, Roland.
All right, glad to have you here. So first and foremost, how's it looking 8 days out?
It's tough. We're fighting as hard as we can. We're on the ground. Our folks are excited and enthusiastic. It's a hard race, but we think we have what it's going to take to pull it out.
Now, earlier today, I was talking to some folks here, and what they said is that obviously the focus is November 27th, but people can still vote absentee through what date?
They can vote absentee up through this coming Saturday, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. The circuit clerk's office will be open from 8 until 12 o'clock. They can also vote in some circuit clerk's offices on the Friday after Thanksgiving. So that is part of the campaign's strategy and operation. And we have people out there now ginning up and getting people to the polls to vote early.
And of course, what do you make of this latest news? Again, the white supremacists donating to Cindy Hyde-Smith's campaign and then returning it only after the media raised the issue.
I'm not quite sure that I know exactly the story you're talking about, but we are not surprised by any of this, Roland. We're in Mississippi. We're in the South. That's why this campaign is so important. Our focus is on what Mike Espy can do for the state of Mississippi and the state of this country, actually, in terms of how we can reset the moral compass of what's going on here and how we can make sure that we have policies and a democracy that our children and grandchildren can thrive in. So we're not spending a whole lot of time paying attention to what the other side is doing. We've got our head down. We've got a path to victory. We've got people behind us. We've got our communities on fire. So we feel pretty good about where we are. We know that it's a lot of work, and the work is getting done.
You got a number of pastors, several hundred will be coming into Jackson tomorrow for a prayer rally tomorrow at 11 a.m. Where Pastor Jerry Young will be giving them their marching orders as well. So there's a massive get out the vote effort here in the state.
Yes, sir. This is for the November 27th election. But on November 6th, something happened in the state like we haven't seen in a very, very long time. It happened here and it happened across the region. We did not have the resources to match the other side, but we had people. And people took on this candidacy. They took on this race. Actually, Mike Espy is a vessel for something else that's going on out here in our communities. He is their way to express the concern that's in our communities. So we've had churches from the beginning, churches that have been engaged in ways that we haven't seen before. We've had Democratic Party apparatuses engaged. The vote that came out in some of our precincts, we exceeded the Barack Obama presidential vote, which is unheard of. So we are, I won't say we ride in a wave, but we are certainly part of a movement. And we think that we will be victorious. As I said, we've had lots of prayer, lots of folks that have taken on this race. And it's like we do have a wind beneath our wings, not only here in the state of Mississippi, but across the country.
All right, well, Leila, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thank you for coming. We look forward to seeing you.
All right, thanks
look
a bunch.
Look forward to seeing you on November 27th.
Absolutely, absolutely. Earlier today, folks, here in this auditorium, we caught up with Derrick Johnson, who's the president and CEO of the NAACP, longtime head of the Mississippi State Conference of the NAACP. Here's that conversation.
So before we talk about voting, you know, this
a whole lot of our history has happened in this place we're in right now.
You know, the beautiful thing about this building, many people may not recognize, we made democracy work for African Americans out of this building. Not only was the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party founded in this building, but the Conference of Freedom Organizations. It was an umbrella group of NACP, CORE, SNCC, and SCLC doing the civil rights movement to force the question of full citizenship. Cortland Cox, one of my mentors, was over the SNCC Legacy Project. He typically said that in Mississippi, we forced the question that black folks could, in fact, have the right to vote. And we went to Selma, then to Lowndes County, Alabama, to make sure we could control the vote. And that's what we're talking about today. How do we control the vote of African Americans to elect an individual who will be accountable to our needs and interests?
People talk about safe spaces today.
Right.
I mean, this was one of those safe spaces for black folks in the 50s and 60s.
One of 3 places in the state of Mississippi where black folks could convene and discuss issues of freedom and civil rights. Here, Tougaloo College, my alma mater, and Mary Holmes College is currently closed, but this was one of the places that we could actually meet.
When we talk about making democracy work, we just saw Stacey Abrams not concede, but make it clear that she is going to fight for voting rights there in Georgia. You look at what happened in Florida, Andrew Gillum losing by less than 35,000 votes as well. And I made this point on my show, and you were on it. You know, if Broward County and Miami-Dade County, if we had voted 65, 70% turnout, that changes the game in Florida.
You know, the number one thing to fight against vote suppression is voter turnout. You know, vote suppression is the problem, but if we increase turnout, it's less of an issue. This is a game of inches, not miles, and every vote counts.
People don't understand that elections in this country are not federal elections.
No.
They're not even state elections. They are local. When we say local, they're not even city elections. They literally are. Matter of fact, it's not even county elections. That thing goes precinct by precinct. I mean, so you might go in one precinct, and it's a whole different thing that's happening compared to the next precinct. I mean, my parents worked elections. They worked them in Houston, and I worked them in Dallas County, in the area of Dallas. And they take that job very seriously. But when you hear these stories of, well, one person over here being told one thing, and another person being told, oh, this person over here being new, and ballots got misplaced, stuff along those lines. I mean, this is the fundamental problem I think still facing us, and it makes no sense to me.
Not at all. You know, on election night, I was in Atlanta. We filed 3 lawsuits on election night because of the administration of the election procedure for specific precincts. We need a federal election system. In fact, our election system should be a matter of national security, and that's why Congressman Thompson will be coming forth with a bill
Benny Thompson.
to make sure that it is a matter of national security. When we have a foreign nation tampering with our elections, when we have inconsistent voting machines, when we have a company like Diebold, who's nothing more than a tool of the conservative movement to manipulate outcomes, there's no way to have accountable access to whether or not your vote as you cast it represents the integrity of your interests. All those things are important to address in order for us to have a functioning democracy.
One of the things that also I think when you talk about getting people to understand, so obviously filing those lawsuits, making sure the machines work, making sure people are properly trained. But I also think that what we have to do is connect these dots for people who really don't understand. I was, earlier, I went to the home of Medgar and Merle Evers. And I'm driving, and I know I hit at least about 30 potholes.
That's all?
Right. And the thing is, what people don't understand is, so somebody may go, oh man, okay, complaining about a pothole. Well, the question is it a city?
That's right.
Is it a county? Who's responsible for it? People not understanding that when you think about the census, that has a direct impact on dollars that are then appropriated to states and counties for things like roads. I mean, we can go down the line, and so I can go through every, in fact, there was one I was driving and I went over a speed bump. Well, first of all, you just can't put a speed bump on a city street.
That's right.
Some politician, some bureaucrat had to approve that speed bump on that street. And so I think in many ways it's trying to connect the dots of people to understand that you may think that you're living off the grid, as if your life isn't impacted by politics, that is nonsensical.
The air we breathe is a result of public policy consideration to make sure it's fresh air or air that will poison us. Everything we do. You know, you talk about the census. That's our next project, NACP. That was an argument, and many of us talk about the 3/5 debate. That wasn't about whether or not we were human or not. That was about whether or not the federal appropriation would follow the individuals after the count would take place. And the deal was cut for northern states and southern states. The northern states said, we're not going to give you money for individuals you consider property, but you want to count as people. The southern states, well, we're not going to pass a set of legislation. Compromise. Well, if you count them as 3/5, not a whole person, and give us 3/5 of the money per person, then that's a deal. They cut the deal. It wasn't about people. It wasn't about values. It was about money. In a democracy, our vote is our currency, and that currency needs to be leveraged collectively to ensure that our streets are paved, to make sure that our tax dollars are serving our interests, but most importantly for African Americans, to make sure we are owners of government and not victims of government. And you can only own government if you participate and leverage your vote.
Type it in. All right, folks, that was, of course, the conversation with Derek Johnson, President and CEO of the NAACP. And so, again, folks, we are here in Mississippi, focused on this U.S. Senate race. And it is, of course, again, 8 days, and black folks all across this state are mobilizing, organizing churches and fraternities and sororities. Later on, we will talk to a sister with one of the sororities about this campaign and what they are doing to make sure people also are able to get out there and vote. Another story, though, that we're watching involves another civil rights organization, and that is Color of Change. Last week, the New York Times had this huge story. It talked about how Facebook was targeting a number of people, pushing back against their critics, and they tried to blast Color of Change as being a group funded by George Soros. Well, guess what? He has been a consistent target of folks on the right, and many people say it's also there are threads of anti-Semitism by somehow using his name and attaching him to every single sort of initiative. Well, Color of Change responded to Facebook, really putting them on their heels, saying that massive changes should be made because they said they were offended by their attack that was taking place against them. Joining us right now is Rashad Robinson, Executive Director of Color of Change. Rashad, many people were very surprised to see that story of Facebook hiring a conservative group, a conservative outfit, to dig up dirt on the Color of Change, to trash you in media. Late last week, Facebook fired that group. Mark Zuckerberg claims he had no knowledge whatsoever of what they were doing. Sheryl Sandberg as well. That's hard to believe for a whole lot of folks.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to believe. I mean, what the whole story for us is a bit hard to believe. For the last several years, our work on Facebook has been deeply public. I've come on your show to talk about some of the, spoken with you a number of times about some of our campaign work, from that issue with Corrine Gaines, the young woman in Baltimore who had her Facebook Live turned off during a police interaction and ended up dead, to some of the civil rights violations on their platform. We have campaigned. We've sat at the table. We led a major campaign to push Facebook to adopt a civil rights audit and to begin reviewing all their policies and practices, and have now pushed them to actually get on a timeline for when they're going to release it. All while we were doing it, they hired this right-wing firm, as you said, to really trash us. But the unique way that they trashed us was quite interesting. They went on this theme around George Soros, the sort of billionaire philanthropist, who does support some of Color of Change's work, but is by no means our largest donor. And we are not one of the largest, recipients of money from the Open Society Foundation. But they used this frame that we were somehow puppets of George Soros, which for anyone who's a student of history, this was one of the themes that was oftentimes leveraged against some of the civil rights workers of the 60s, that black organizers, black activists are somehow puppets of these sort of behind-the-scenes Jewish leaders. It's also deeply anti-Semitic. It has all sorts of themes and these ideas that Jewish people control the world, or Jewish people are controlling, what we do every single day. And so that Facebook, as an organization, rather than actually dealing with us at the table, dealing with our demands, would hire this right-wing PR firm and leverage these attacks behind the scenes. For the last several months, Roland, we have gotten all sorts of calls from journalists randomly asking us, do you get money from George Soros? How much money do you get from George Soros? We thought it was weird. Some of the threats against our organization, white nationalists, sending us hate mail, people would start mentioning George Soros. We actually didn't know where this was coming from. The idea that this was coming from Facebook, one of the largest corporations in the world, one of the largest communications platforms, speaks to how much they actually have to change.
And what has been their response? I'll take it you reach out to them. Have you met with them? What did they say?
Well, our staff some of the staff have met with various staff of Facebook. We've made a direct public demand right now that Sheryl Sandberg and Mark Zuckerberg sit down with me and that we have a conversation. They've put our organization, myself, our members, in danger by some of the ways in which they leverage white nationalists and white supremacist tropes and narratives to undermine our work, and I believe that they have to sit down with us. We're also pushing hard and in conversation about the civil rights audit. The fact of the matter is that they agreed to do it, but they've been stalling. We have no word on when they're going to release it. We have no word on the enforcement that they're going to put behind it. So an audit without actual enforcement and teeth is not worth it to us. Facebook has a lot of problems. They will continue to be one of the larger communications platforms in the world and have a huge sway over the conversations and politics in our country. And the lack of regulation, the lack of accountability is dangerous for all of us. And that's what we're demanding. We have been unsatisfied at this point with Facebook's response. But, our work is the commitment of channeling our members and Black folks' energy and holding these companies accountable. These companies that can sometimes think that they give you a $100,000 check and that you're going to go away. We don't take money from Facebook. And part of what we've got to do here is make sure that they live up to their stated values of connecting people across community, and that they are accountable to the law of the land.
All right, Rashawn Robinson, we certainly appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much. Certainly keep us updated about those conversations with Facebook. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, let's bring in my panel now. We have Michael Brown, former vice chair of the DNC Finance Committee. Also Liz Bottori, 2018 GOP nominee for Congress from Maryland. And also Eugene Craig III, CEO of the Eugene Craig Organization. Let's start off first with the Facebook issue. And Michael, I'll start with you. Look, that is an issue. This is a behemoth of a company now. They have been under withering criticism. We know, of course, about Russia in terms of how they weaponized Facebook, also how they were targeting Black folks with fake Black Lives Matter accounts, and also voter suppression and spreading fake news. Now you have this in terms of using an outfit to attack Color of Change. Look, don't be surprised to see Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg back on Capitol Hill having to answer some serious questions about the behavior of this company.
Well, first, Roland, they're absolutely going to have to do that. And on your way back home, I love that T-shirt. Either get me an XL or a XX. I'd be very appreciative. Facebook, because they're so large, and as you know, the other part of my life besides being a political pundit is working on K Street in Capitol Hill. And Facebook has hired all kinds of consultants and lobbyists to try to figure out how to do the best they can to keep regulations from occurring. That's going to be extremely difficult, not just because the new Congress is coming in, not because you have all these new members coming in, they're going to demand the accountability, but because people see companies, and it doesn't matter what company it could be in the tech space or in the manufacturing space. When people start acting without regulations, this is the kind of stuff that can happen. So I think we can look forward to somebody, because it's either self-imposed regulations or they're going to be imposed on them by Congress.
Liz?
Well, of course, our take as conservatives will be very different. We are very nervous when government is going to regulate an innovation like Facebook. Facebook has a challenge. It's actually larger than most countries. I've used Facebook through my campaign and being a sort of a new voice for the conservative movement. So we want to make sure that the innovation that they've created that has brought so many different people together will find the right mix. They have a big challenge, and I think that Facebook and other social media platforms will take this on to find a better way to make sure that the platform is useful and actually small d democratic. We really don't want to see government regulating it, because with more regulation, obviously, it's actually government control.
Eugene, what Liz just said is actually out of the mainstream, because you're hearing Republicans who are saying regulate Facebook. What is she talking about?
Well, the thing is this. Real conservatives understand that the #1 role of government is to protect the rights of people, and chiefly among those are civil rights, and Facebook has a responsibility to adhere to the laws of the land when it comes to the public access and public use, and protecting the rights of their users. And so the thing is this: Facebook, previously has just been a medium that other actors have used to attack, people of color and organizations and whatnot, and affect elections. They've gone from being a medium that's used to being the actor themselves, in particular with hiring this particular firm that they use to fight back against some of the accusations that turned out to be truths. And so, look, you see, ardent Republicans. Right or right, Republicans are now coming out and saying, hey, listen, we're probably going to have to come in and do some regulating. And it's not necessarily, regulating the innovation, but, is Facebook now more a quote-unquote media company that has a responsibility to make sure that they're propagating truth and not being used to, thwart democracies? Or are they just a tech company that's just a medium? And I think what we're seeing now as this story unfolds and other stories unfold, that Facebook is acting more like a media company. But, don't take Congress's word for it. Let's take...
Look, Mike, I'll tell you point blank. When you hear this conversation about Facebook saying we're not a media company, we're a tech company, the reality is when you look at what they're doing now with video, what they're doing with, in terms of the information they're driving out, where most people are getting their news from, look, you can't have it both ways. You can't be on Monday say I'm a tech company, then on Tuesday I'm a media company, then on Wednesday I'm a tech company, then on Thursday I'm a media company, then on Friday say I'm something totally different. It's like literally they're changing their narrative to fit the situation. They are a behemoth that is controlling access of information for a whole lot of people in this country and in this world.
I'm not sure what the Webster's definition is, but to me, they're a large media company that also does tech. And that's kind of what they are. And that's okay. I think the question, again, is how do you balance between whether it's regulation. I know the number 45 loves deregulation, but in some situations, you have to have some controls so things like this don't continue to happen, in particular when they impact suppression of voting or folks' ideas on items.
Well, then, so then in reference to that, we're talking about suppression. On the conservative end, we do know that Facebook controls what people see. And we have been attacked. If you put something in reference to pro-life, for example, they'll have an analytic that is looking for, that to not be shown to more and more people. So again, I do believe that Facebook, as the most, powerful, again, tech company in the world, to be able to regulate themselves, because they're the ones who will know what's best, and then also the consumers. We're the ones who create the content. That's the weird thing. It's a new.
So Liz, 1 second, Liz, you're saying let Facebook continue to regulate themselves,
and with also user input. I think that's the really wonderful thing about a platform like Facebook.
But here's the problem, Liz. Here's the problem. Mm-hmm. You don't know what your input is. You're saying user input. You don't know when they change the algorithm. Mm-hmm. You don't know when they make changes. You don't know. Color Change did not know they had hired a company to attack them because they were criticizing their policies. That only came out because of investigative journalism. And so, in many ways, that's the only way we've even known what has happened inside of Facebook.
Right. So we're talking, you use the word attack, I would say investigate. Is there an issue?
No, it was attack.
So you're telling...
No. It wasn't investigate.
So they hired a company
Okay, Liz,
to attack.
Liz.
I'm confused.
No,
with
they hired a company to attack. They hired a
Liz,
company to go on the offensive.
hold on one second.
Content.
Liz.
Okay.
We just had the man on, Rashad Robinson,
Right.
who was on the receiving end of their attacks.
Right, and
yes,
we
it
talk
was
about that.
an attack.
We could talk about that. He talks about money, okay? So organizations like Color of Change would not be able to be as powerful and as strong as a nonprofit if it weren't for the funding, massive funding from organizations like Open Society. So his statements are so slightly disingenuous because he knows for a fact that it's not about him being a Jew. It's the fact that he has lots of money that he can invest in an organization to proliferate his narrative.
Liz, that is nonsense.
Okay.
Liz, that is absolute nonsense. Eugene, go ahead. I'm sorry. That's your fellow conservative from Maryland, Eugene. Go ahead.
So the thing is this, okay? Yes, Color Change has, received some funding from an Open Society or Foundation, but that's not where the bulk of their funding comes from. But the main point of this discussion is that Facebook hired a firm to go after their quote-unquote enemies, handed them an enemies list, and this firm went ahead and created content that was seeded out to organizations like Breitbart, which turned around and attacked these organizations, which ended up being what? Content shared on Facebook. But, if we're going to have a discussion about regulation, I like to quote the CEO of the biggest tech company in the world, Apple. Tim Cook has come out and said, hey, you know what? We probably are going to have some regulation, probably need some regulation. I mean, Facebook, we're talking about, this particular situation where they hired a firm to attack, civil rights orgs. But let's talk about what they're actually doing with our privacy, what they're doing with the data that's being shared there, which, one more time, user input, we have no input. We have no say-so. So, when you have an organization like Facebook that have proven that they cannot regulate themselves, it's up to governments to protect the rights of their citizens.
Right. So question is, how much government is enough to regulate something that is supposed to be, small d democratic? That is the question that, yes, regulators and legislators have to say.
Much.
That's the question. That's the fundamental question,
how much,
Roland.
No. You keep saying how much. Right now, Michael, it's none.
Well, go back also to the titans of back when the railroad industry began. And some of the titans said, if you don't do it the way I want you to do it, I'm just going to shut down the railroad tracks, and you can't get your people or your products from east of the Mississippi to the west coast. So you know what the government did? They said, you know what, we need some regulation.
Antitrust.
We need some stuff. Antitrust, exactly.
Rockefeller shut down an entire plant in order to squeeze his competitors. He put thousands out of work to prove a point.
So you're saying
that's one of the reasons why they would regulate it.
Are you saying that we're at that point? I mean, one of my favorite classes was antitrust in law school.
What I'm saying is,
I'm just wondering, are we at that point?
What I'm saying is, Liz, what I'm saying is, we have examples in the United States history where you have had monopolies that have been dominant players, to Michael's point, in oil, in railroads, in finance, in other areas. And what happened? Of course, we know about Teddy Roosevelt, Republican, okay, being a major antitrust person. We know about the history of the bails being broken up. We know for a fact that companies have become so large in America that there was a need to actually regulate them in a much different way. Many believe, including some conservatives, Michael, and Liz and Eugene, that Facebook is on that path. It could very well be there right now.
Absolutely. I mean, this
final comment, 20 seconds each.
This isn't the first time we're seeing this. I mean, we can go back 10 years ago during a financial crisis when, look, a lot of folk that were, big supporters of the big banks said, look, we need regulation. We need, some kind of checks and balances.
My point is that, do we have the government in place that will be able to see, whether it is big enough, small enough, neutral enough to evaluate said government control? I mean, at the end of the day, I love the fact that Eugene says I don't know what I'm talking about, but at the end of the day, the conversation that we're having on the conservative end is a conversation. This is the time for us to debate and to negotiate whether, the last case scenario for the government to come in. That's the only thing that I'm trying to make, and we should all make that point.
Their last opportunity is to show the advocates, lawmakers, citizens, customers, that they're able to regulate themselves. If those stakeholders do not feel that they have done that, there will be federal regulation. And it's happening in the UK too,
right,
Roland.
folks, hold tight.
Keep in mind, it's happening across the pond right now.
Well, you're right, and trust me, tech companies in America are being impacted by the European Union with various regulations. Folks, hold tight 1 second. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about what's happening here in Mississippi and get to some other headlines of the day. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Jackson, Mississippi. We'll be back in a moment. Jay. All right, folks. Again, we're here in Jackson, Mississippi. And, of course, right across the street from us is an HBCU. That is Jackson State. But, of course, our HBCU school today is Florida A&M University, founded in 1887. I know that control room. I got it. I'm just trying to explain to you, Jackson State is literally across. We're actually on the campus of Jackson State, this facility. And so that's why I'm saying that. Of course, graduates of FAMU, Andrew Gillum, Kay Michelle, my frat brother Will Packer, and also Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottom. Support FAMU by going to famu.edu, famu.edu. And also, you're a graduate of FAMU, please, you need to do your part as well. Because we need more folks giving to the university. Only 5% of Florida A&M University graduates give to their university, and so we want to make sure that you guys are cutting checks to support the university to make sure the next generation of students are able to go to college. All right, folks, here's a word from one of our partners. As we transition to the holiday season, this is the time when we start thinking about giving and sharing. Sometimes the best gift that you can give someone is an opportunity that could potentially change their lives. Well, our friends at Transatlantic Real Estate have created an investment opportunity for the everyday investor. It involves legal marijuana and crowdfunding. Now, we all know that legal marijuana has created one of the fastest growing industries in the nation. We also know that crowdfunding makes it easy to be an early investor of an opportunity. Folks, this is a no-brainer, but it gets even better because what Transatlantic is actually doing is their business model is simple. They buy the land that supports marijuana grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. That means that you're going to be a landlord of a licensed marijuana farm in a high-growth market. And so for limited time only, you can invest anywhere from $300 up to $10,000 before the company goes public. Now, here's the thing. You must complete and confirm your application to participate. Again, complete the process. Don't just go on, pop your email in, and say, I'm done. No, you must complete the process. Now, again, if you're looking to use your holiday money in a much different way, this is one way you can do it. And so all you have to do is go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. Get in the game, and you can certainly do it now. All right, folks, here's the deal. So we talk about what is going on here in Mississippi. I talked earlier about the absolute effort to focus on getting folks out. Well, you heard me say on this show how critically important it is for Greek-led organizations to do their part. Massive infrastructure, but the question is, are they fully using it? Well, earlier I talked to a sister who's a member of Delta Sigma Theta, who is part of the Pan-Hellenic Council, and she talked about what they're doing here in Mississippi to drive folks on the ground to get out and vote. Here's that conversation.
A number of people, a number of organizations out here who are all about getting folks out to vote. So give us a sense of trying to drive that on the ground, trying to, one, get folks to not only register to vote. Obviously, it's too late to vote in the runoff on November 27th, but just getting people to understand why they got to get out and vote.
Well, why? If you don't vote, you really don't have a voice. Here in Mississippi, voting is something that is very, 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 very essential. What we've done here from November 6th, what we started the day after November 6th to get folks out to vote, as a member of the PAN, collectively, believing in the power of we got together and we said, hey, we're going to rally with our black churches. We're going to support other nonprofits. We're going to come together. We're going to put boots on the ground We're going to do the door knocking. We're going to volunteer. We're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that Mississippi is not last and that all votes will be counted on November the 27th.
Obviously, when you look at the percentage of African Americans in this state, close to 40%, hugely important demographic when it comes to voting. What has been some of the struggles, though? Because obviously you're dealing with significant rural areas and where you don't necessarily have the same intensity of coverage in terms of television and radio. And so what have you had to deal with in terms of organizing vans and buses and things along those lines to get folks to polling stations?
Glad you asked. What we've done, going back to churches, we had churches to volunteer with their vans. And another thing that we did in the rural area, I'm proud to say that my organization had a national partnership with Lyft. And so what we did and what we're still doing is we said we have codes. We took the technology with Lyft. We partnered with the NAACP to make sure that those individuals can call in and get a Lyft directly to their front door to take them to the polls. Churches, we organized within the demographics of the voter precincts to have them to come to the various areas and get folks to the poll. So
first of all, take me through the map. And so you have all of these counties in the state. Do you have designated folks? Do you have designated vans or buses? So if somebody is in one particular county and they say, okay, I need to ride to vote, is there a number they call? Do they text? I mean, so how does it work?
Yes. So the number that they call goes back to our national partnership with the building that we're sitting in, an organization that I'm grateful for, the NAACP. They had a 1-800 voter protection number, and that number was a one-call number. So that number was spread from the top of Mississippi to the bottom. That number covered all 82 counties, and so all 82 counties had access to one number that they could call and get a ride.
All right, folks. And so, again, they're still focused on the election here in Mississippi. It's going to be on Tuesday, November 27th. And, again, you can vote absentee until November 24th. But in Georgia, they are no longer counting votes there. Stacey Abrams, she did not concede to Brian Kemp. He will be sworn in as a governor, but she made it perfectly clear she is not going to go away. She's going to be a thorn in the side of folks who were leading voter suppression in Georgia. Here's what she had to say.
Under the watch of the now former Secretary of State, democracy failed Georgia. Georgians of every political party, every race, every region, again. I acknowledge that former Secretary of State Brian Kemp will be certified as the victor in the 2018 gubernatorial election. But to watch an elected official who claims to represent the people in this state baldly pin his hopes for election on the suppression of the people's democratic right to vote has been truly appalling. So let's be clear. This is not a speech of concession, because concession means to acknowledge an action is right, true, or proper. As a woman of conscience and faith, I cannot concede that. But my assessment is the law currently allows no further viable remedy. Now, I could certainly bring a new case to keep this one contest alive, but I don't want to hold public office if I need to scheme my way into the post. Because the title of governor isn't nearly as important as our shared title, voters. And that is why we fight on, and why I want to say thank you. Today, I announce the launch of Fair Fight Georgia, an operation that will pursue accountability in Georgia's elections and integrity in the process of maintaining our voting rolls. In the coming days, we will be filing a major federal lawsuit against the state of Georgia for the gross mismanagement of this election and to protect future elections from unconstitutional actions. We will channel the work of the past several weeks into a strong legal demand for reform of our election systems in Georgia. And I will not waver in my commitment, a lived commitment, to work across party lines and across divisions to find a common purpose in protecting our democracy. because we deserve a state that elects Democrats and Republicans and independents. We deserve a state that elects leaders who will not tolerate the erosion of our values. Fair fight Georgia, because these votes are our voices, and we are entitled to our choices, each of us. And we have always been, Georgia, at the forefront of speaking truth to whatever power may lay claim to leadership, if only for a moment. And we will win because we are Georgia. And I promise you, we will get it done.
Well, Michael Brown, Stacey Abrams is throwing the gauntlet down, making it clear she's still going to fight.
And what a speech. I mean, she kind of hit on every note. She defined everything perfectly. You know, you saw the people in the crowd. They're clearly disappointed that her effort wasn't successful. But she has put down a gauntlet, and folks are going to have to be accountable. I'm assuming she's going to have a lot of support for her new organization. The governor-elect is going to have to watch his back, as well as other people in high elected officials that try to suppress votes in Georgia from now on. So she may not have won to become governor, but she could become one of the most important people in the state of Georgia over the next several years.
Liz, clearly she makes it clear that there are issues with voting in Georgia, and it should be fixed.
Right. Well, you know, we've actually always championed voter ID just for this purpose. I know that a lot of people have an issue with it, but I mean, you know, even our state of Maryland, when we have
I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. Yeah. You just said we champion voter ID for this purpose. What purpose are you talking about? That's not what she just said.
So, but if you're talking about voter suppression and issues with voting, the number one thing you can actually do is identify who is actually lawfully allowed to vote. And I don't know why.
No, actually, you're wrong. Actually, Liz, you're wrong.
Okay,
I'm wrong. The issue, Liz, well, Liz, let me take you through the history or the timeline here so you fully understand.
Okay.
You had Brian Kemp when he was Secretary of State purging folks. No, I'm trying to tell you, purging folks from the rolls. A federal judge slapped that down, saying that he was absolutely wrong. What did Republicans, your party, do in Georgia? They said, what the hell? We're going to make it state law. And so that's what you had. You had people, this whole issue of, well, if you had a period or you had a one item missing, it didn't match over here, you had that going on. You had cross-check going on. You also had the problems with voting machines not having power cords. That ain't got jack to do with voter ID. You had a black woman, 92 years old, who'd been voting in the exact same location since 1968, had not moved, yet somehow her name was mysteriously missing from the rolls. Voter ID don't have a damn thing to do with that.
So when you have Oprah Winfrey come to your campaign and campaign for you, I would argue that that should be, you know, the way to rally the troops. At the end of the day, like, I commend Stacey Abrams for actually having some support of the Democratic Party, because very few black women actually have that support at that high level. So I commend her for actually having the support from the Democratic Party.
Liz.
Yeah.
I know this is your first time on the show, but you can't just be sitting here hopping from one subject to another. You raise a point, and then all of a sudden you switch it by saying that's why we have voter ID. Then I give you the history of it. Then you go, hey, a black woman supporting a black woman.
No.
So
my point, sir, was that I think if you have someone as huge as Oprah Winfrey come to campaign and rally the troops, those rallying of the troops would actually outcount any of those glitches. Now, I think she should have the lawsuit. Why doesn't she pursue the lawsuit?
Liz,
if there's
you
so
still
much
just
evidence,
missed it, Liz.
then why don't they do it? Why aren't they pursuing the lawsuit?
Liz, you still just missed. Okay, Eugene, let me just go to you, because obviously I don't know what's going on in the studio while I'm not there. But the bottom line is this here. What Stacey Abrams is talking about is not the issue of voter ID. It's a combination of things. Yeah. It's the purging of people. It's also having machines not working. It's having places that open late. It's having no power cords. It's having old machines one place, new machines other place. She's talking about dealing with the entire system, not voter ID.
Yeah, well, I mean, once again, Liz doesn't know what she's talking about. The issue is this.
First of all, Eugene, stop attacking me individually.
The issue is this. You know, what Stacey Abrams is pointing out is this. A full-fledged operation to suppress voters, particularly black voters. 70% of the voters that were purged were African-American. The largely the precincts that were targeted were African-American precincts and minority voting precincts. I mean, you cannot reasonably come in and say, hey, there's no voter suppression, or try to change the topic of voter suppression, when you have a situation where you have a precinct of thousands of people that only have 3 machines that are working. We have precincts that don't have proper power cords. We have precincts where people are, you know, they're running the cross-check and then being forced to cast provisional ballots and then forced to come back 3 days later to prove they are who they are.
So why don't you have the Department of Justice go in and investigate?
Because the Department of Justice during the time was headed by a bigoted racist that did not care about black people's civil rights.
I'm talking about the federal government. You guys were just championing.
Jeff Sessions does not give two words about a civil rights.
Liz. You guys were just championing the federal government, correct? In the last episode, you just said, why don't we have the federal government? That's what the federal government's for.
Do you think the federal government has enough power to regulate elections?
If there is an issue that comes to a point of voter suppression, then we have the means to investigate. Investigate.
Do you believe
do I need to remind you, Liz?
Yeah.
No, hold up. Everybody, do I need to remind you that it was a Shelby v. Holder decision of the conservative Supreme Court that caused all of this stuff to happen? Do I need to remind you that Republicans have refused to take up the issue of Section 4 and the Voting Rights Act? Do I need to remind you that they have done nothing? They haven't even supported the bill of Sensenbrenner from Wisconsin, a fellow Republican. Do I need to remind you that the Department of Justice was led by Jeff Sessions, Mr. Voter Suppression himself? So exactly what Department of Justice are you talking about? The Obama Department of Justice? Are we talking about the Will Smith Department of Justice? Are we talking about Men in Black or a movie? Because last I checked, the Trump Department of Justice don't care a flip about the issue of voter suppression.
Roland, so why doesn't she pursue the lawsuit? If there's such an issue, why doesn't Stacey Abrams use her time and her treasure?
Oh my God!
Why doesn't she do it?
Liz, were you listening to the video? Were you listening to the tape we played? She said they are going to be filing a massive federal lawsuit.
She said that she's not going. She said at the end she didn't want to have to push for that in order to get her to be a governor. So I said, if there's going to be an issue, then she would be a governor.
No, Liz. No, she said she didn't have to cheat to win to be a governor. That's what she said. She said, I don't need to close down polling places to be a governor. I don't need to suppress voters to be a governor. I don't need to cheat to win to be a governor. She said, protecting democracy is more important than me winning an office by virtue of cheating, the way Brian Kemp did by double-dealing himself as Secretary of State.
And then she said she will file a federal lawsuit with her new organization about voter suppression.
Okay, well, good luck to her. Congratulations.
So she actually said it. So,
okay.
Yes, I'm glad 2 out of 3 people were listening. All right, y'all, I got to go to a break right now. Here's another one of our partners we want y'all to support. Here we go. With the holidays just around the corner, now is the time to order holiday cards for family and friends. This year, you could create custom holiday photo cards real simple and easy and affordable by going to simplytoimpress.com. Simplytoimpress.com is your holiday photo card headquarters with thousands of unique Christmas cards and other designs to choose from. Look, all you got to do is upload your family photos or get them from Facebook or Instagram, personalize the text, and you're done. It's that easy. Folks, simplytoimpress.com prints your cards professionally on your choice of premium card stock in just a few days and rushes them straight to your door. Now, the New York Times Wirecutter named Simply to Impress their favorite custom photo card service. Simply to Impress even offers foil cards and hundreds of great holiday card designs for your business as well. So you can place your order today and save 30% to get free shipping. Now look, it's all you got to do is use the promo code DEAL. That's DEAL at checkout. Save big on holiday photo cards today using promo code DEAL at simplytoimpress.com. Again, simplytoimpress.com. So please support those folks who support Roland Martin Unfiltered. Now, folks, earlier today, as I said, we're broadcasting live from this facility here, which is where so much history was made in the 1950s and 60s. This was where Medgar Evers' funeral took place and also where the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party was founded.
but also the NAACP, they have been here. Mississippi NAACP have been here since 1955. And earlier we took a tour, which included the office where Medgar Evers worked out of. Take a look. All right, folks. All right, so we're going to take a tour of this facility here with Derek Johnson and also Frank Finnegan. He's going to be our tour guide as well. Plus, we'll you may check out the office of Medgar Evers. Now, obviously, when I came up here, Frank, I saw this here. And so, for the folks who don't know, I know, and Derek, you can explain to folks what the Sovereignty Commission is.
The Mississippi State Sovereignty Commission was a taxpayer-funded organization that spied on people and whose purpose it was to prevent the opening up of Mississippi to the disenfranchised citizens. They did anything, any means necessary.
And this was funded by the state.
Yes.
So black people were paying for a commission to spy on them.
Yes.
It was 1954 after the Supreme Court decision came out. The state of Mississippi was seeking ways to prevent the integration of public education and to thwart any effort of African Americans from voting. The Sovereignty Commission was created for that effort. The spy agency was so egregious, it provided the Klan the information needed, which led to the assassination of Michael Cheney, Andrew Goodman, and Mickey Schwerner. Hundreds of people were assassinated as a result of the Mississippi Sovereignty Commission. The files were finally opened in 1992 and in 1993 when people really realized how egregious the activities of this spy agency was. We believe there are other spy agencies that were created across the South. The Mississippi Sovereignty Commission was the one that we were able to uncover as a result of one of the first black state senators, Henry Kirksey, stumbling across the files and making enough noise over time, which forced the state to open the records.
All right, then. Now, also, so Allison, slide this way. So Frank, this photo here, obviously, when it came in, you see, obviously, Dr. King here, but explain Roy Wilkins. Explain this photo.
This photograph is a picture that was taken after the funeral of assassinated Medgar Evers, who at one time served as the field secretary of the Mississippi State Conference.
And that funeral was here?
And that funeral was here in this building. And there was an overflow crowd of over 3,000 people in attendance. Mm-hmm. And that is a part of that crowd. They were leaving this building and marching downtown. It was an impromptu march, and they were going
So that wasn't planned?
It wasn't planned before the funeral. But because of the nature and the horribleness of this murder, people were just overcome. And they wanted to do something, and they marched from this building to downtown. But they were met.
Yeah, but also the significance of Roy Wilkins and King being together in this photo, SCSC only came to exist as a result of NAACP being banned from Alabama.
Right.
And E.D. Nixon was the creator of the concept of the Montgomery bus boycott. And it was through E.D. Nixon and Rosa Parks, prior to King coming on the scene, they had organized that community. When NAACP was banned from Alabama, they organized the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Medgar Evers drove over. He was the original secretary of SCLC. So SCLC is NAACP only because they were banned from Alabama, but it grew out to be something different as well.
All right, then. All right, so now we're going in here, and so this is this is the office.
Yes, now, if in 1955, 56, 57, 58, all the way through 63, you wrote to Medgar Evers, the field secretary, you would write Medgar Evers, Mississippi State Conference field secretary, 1072 John R. Lynch Street, Suite 7, Jackson, Mississippi. But Medgar Evers' real office was in Suite 10. Suite 7 is a room on the front of the building with a lot of natural light and glass. But because of the strategic nature of the work that Medgar Evers did, making 2 Mississippis 1 Mississippi, you had to be careful.
Yeah, because you still got the bullet holes, right?
Yes. So his office was in the corner in the back in Suite 10.
All right.
It is recognized the strategic nature of Medgar Evers and his counterparts. They were World War II veterans. Our whole infrastructure was built off a set of individuals who came back from World War II, decided not to leave, and Medgar Evers was the person who took on the job, but you had Steptoe, you had C.C. Bryant, Aaron Henry, Amzie Moore. They were across the state of Mississippi, and they all carried guns because they were World War II veterans.
That was important.
That was very important.
All right, then. How y'all doing? Good, good. Good, good.
So this was the office of Medgar Evers. It is important to say that this also was the immediate past Mississippi State Conference President's office, who was recently promoted to the national national conference of NAACP's president, Mr. Derek Johnson.
All right then, folks. And so if you want to see the full tour, you simply go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin to check that out. You can also see the full interview we did with NAACP CEO Derek Johnson tomorrow, and also, of course, with Michelle Kiles with Delta Sigma Theta. And so please, you can check those interviews out. And so tomorrow, we're going to be broadcasting live tomorrow at 11 a.m. Local time, 12 noon. The prayer rally taking place here in Mississippi for upwards of 800 pastors who will be there at the downtown Marriott. And so we will be there as well. And so we look forward to that. Also, I visited the home of Medgar Evers, of course, where he was shot and killed on June 12th, 1963. And so we'll actually have that for you as well. A lot of things for us to cover. Let me thank my panel. Let me thank Michael, Liz, and Eugene there. Well, thank you so very much for joining us.
Anytime.
Folks, don't forget, you can support Roland Martin Unfiltered by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com to join our Bring the Funk fan club. There's no other show out there as a daily digital show giving you this type of news, reporting on the ground on issues affecting our community. And so we can only do this with your support. So please go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com to assist us in continuing to do this. And so Joe Madison, of course, threw the challenge down last week. He signed up 2 of our sponsorships, and so we want you to do the same as well. So I would love to see at least 100 of you today join our Bring the Funk fan club, because we have to fund our own freedom and support those independent news operations that are speaking truth to power. So we want to do that. Also tomorrow, folks, Mike Espy is going to be actually having a barbershop conversation. Our cameras will be there recording that as well. All right, folks, I've got to go. You take care. Have a great day. Holla!